Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now, here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. Past guests include Joe Polish, Roland Frazier, and Mitch Russo. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 28 years. So if you're a company that has software, product, or a design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. You could email my team at welcome@goldsteinpc.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You could also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have with me here today Eli Harrell. Eli is the co-founder of Valhalla.team, where he helps entrepreneurs to build high-performing teams. And he's also the host of the Products with Purpose podcast. In sum, I'd say the focus of his work is helping entrepreneurs to solve meaningful problems in the world. It's my pleasure to welcome here today, Eli Harrell. Welcome, Eli.
Thank you, Rich, for having me here. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So let's talk about kind of how you got started with entrepreneurship. And I understand you grew up in a big family. And so how did that lead you toward your path of entrepreneurship and helping other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I guess in a very quick capsule, I'll just say that it was a very the path was not the typical one. I was the oldest of 8 kids. My parents were entrepreneurs. I was homeschooled, and in the 80s and 90s in the US, that was a little bit unusual. But grew up working with my dad in his business in order to help him take care of all of his kids. And I think I just wanted to get home to play. So I got good at making things more efficient. And I learned, and I saw my parents as I was getting older, I saw my parents succeeding in some ways and then making some other mistakes as entrepreneurs as well. So I've just kind of been in that entrepreneurial world my whole life. Yeah.
Cool.
You want me to, yeah.
And so you saw them making mistakes, and just give me an example of maybe something which you saw happen and that helped you to help other entrepreneurs not make similar mistakes.
Probably where the E-Myth is where that the book by, oh man, what's his name? Forgot.
Gerber.
Yeah, Gerber. Been a long time. I think I read that in my mid-20s, and when I read that book, I'm like, oh my God, this is, a lot of this stuff is exactly what I'm seeing go wrong. My parents did really well. Customer service, running operations, they did really well in building a good, solid, successful business, but it couldn't grow past them. And, being able to kind of build systems, document them, make it so that you can hire people off the street that have the right skill set and plug them into those systems. They never really got to that place. And so it couldn't scale past them. I think those were the biggest core mistakes that so many people who are technicians become founders, run into those problems. But
yeah, that's excellent. I could totally relate to reading that book. And just to give a quick synopsis for the audience and anyone that hasn't, the central notion is that most businesses are not started by entrepreneurs. They're started by technicians who had an entrepreneurial seizure. So in other words, it's like technician being you're a really good carpenter, or you're maybe a lawyer and you're focused on your craft. So you're not necessarily an entrepreneur. You're someone who has a skill, and then you seek to build a business around that skill. And
exactly.
Often the way that entrepreneurs go wrong is then that they are not really set up to be an entrepreneur as much as they're set up to be that technician who happens to have a business.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like one of the things that you learned was the importance of having those systems set up that then allow you to grow your business, allow you to scale.
Definitely. And something I'm still trying to get better at. Pretty happy with the company I'm running now. We have systems documented better than ever before, thanks to amazing tools that we have in this world now, like Notion and other amazing platforms that help us do those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then now let's talk a bit about purpose and like purpose related to entrepreneurship. So I know this is something very important to you. And so like why is it important to you to have purpose be central to the work you do with entrepreneurs?
Yeah, good question. I realized over a couple of decades of running, starting and running businesses and helping other people with theirs, that well, I guess the decade of my 20s I spent doing what a lot of people do, which is chasing quote unquote success and the American dream. And you had these ideas in your mind of what you want when it comes to freedom and experiences and having things. So you had all the stuff you want to have. And then I'm thinking, here's what I've got to do to get it. So I was just really focusing on the doing and the having for that decade, and not really much about who I was becoming. I got really burnt out, really unhappy. Ended up fortunately being able to sell a couple of companies that I built. Just a ton of stress in doing all that, but gradually started realizing that what I really wanted was progress and growth, not necessarily achieving some grandiose vision of freedom. And then I realized I wanted contribution. I wanted to be feeling like I was making a difference for other people. And I think we're all kind of wired that way, that even if we reach this level of financial success, we're going to eventually wake up and realize we're still not happy unless we're doing something that feels meaningful. So I think it appears to me humans are actually wired that way. We just don't really know it sometimes until way late. So
You try to ignore it.
Yeah, exactly. And
I can just get through this. I can make some money and it'll all be okay. I could ignore this, like this thing that's kind of pulling me to want something more, right? Like,
yeah,
suppress it.
exactly. And the images we see of other people who appear happy, sometimes we think it's because they have things, or they're not actually happy. They just look like they are. Anyway, so I've realized that the people on this planet that I respect the most, who I think are genuinely living the most meaningful lives, are doing what they're doing more driven by that contribution than by what they're acquiring. So I think just kind of took me a while to redefine success and realize that it's much more important to me to feel like I'm, and I won't go into the topic of how much contribution am I actually creating or impact am I creating on this planet, because that's a whole different thing. But at least the feeling that I am is way more rewarding than just chasing numbers.
Or Lambos.
Yeah, exactly. Although it would be nice to drive one. But.
Yeah, exactly. But that feels like more of like a weekend in Vegas rental than like, being the guy who pulls out of his driveway and like wakes up the entire neighborhood for no good reason.
Totally agree.
So yeah, so that's like, in terms of purpose and like how, one of the reasons why you see it as being important. And I know that you work with a lot of purpose-driven entrepreneurs on building their teams, and I'm wondering, do they come to you purpose-driven, or do you kind of help them see the light in terms of like reaching for a bigger purpose? Like, do they come to you saying, I just need to scale my team, and you kind of help shift them towards kind of purposeful entrepreneurship, or they come to you saying like, oh, purpose, it's so important to me, I resonate with you, help me?
Really interesting question. So we've evolved over the years. When Garrick and I started this business, our original vision was to get to the point where we had kind of the cash and the team and the experience set that we could help spawn startups that solve meaningful problems. So we wanted to kind of raise entrepreneurs, have kind of an incubator system where we could really start these companies that solve problems. But then we realized a couple of years in, there's a lot of people out there already working very hard to solve these very meaningful problems like climate tech, education, food sustainability, et cetera, things we really care about and things that the world needs super bad right now. And a lot of them are using technology to do it, but they might be just 2 degrees off in the product that they're building. And you fast forward 2 years down the road, that's like leaving from Hong Kong to New York and being 2 degrees off and ending up in Miami. It's like you end up failing because you're just a little off. And we've got the capacity and the product development expertise to help those people. So we've shifted over time to focus our market, like our target market would be purpose-driven, impact-driven startups that are kind of really in business because they're so passionate about solving that meaningful problem. So I would say that the majority of those people that we get connected with are already really in business from the beginning for those reasons. But I would also say, since that's a really interesting question that you just asked me, anybody out there building software that is values aligned with us and really cares about the people that they're doing their work for or with, if we could help them shift more or kind of move more and more in that direction, I'd be ecstatic to have those conversations. So we're open to those conversations with anyone, I think. And I'm just a big fan of helping people see that business is more fun and more rewarding when we focus on the impact that we're having.
Awesome. And so like in terms of like steering it a few degrees in one direction, that kind of leads me toward the notion of like what you do with an initial concept and how do you clarify the direction for a concept, right? And how do you get it mapped out? So like you'd like to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. A lot of times we're working with typically the two times that we are most valuable for a company building software would be when they're either an established company that realizes they need to build a software product, or a tech company that's built an MVP and realizing that they need to shift from maybe a contractor to building internal capacity. And we help them build out that internal product development capacity from building a team, if that's what they need, building out processes. But let's talk about when you're first, for anyone out there who is early in an idea and they're thinking about or getting ready to or have just started building something. The process of getting that idea out of your head and articulated and visually put out into the world so that other people can start to work on it, the way that you go about doing that is critical. We have a process we call the product blueprint sprint. So we call it PBS. So we've got it kind of modularized where we help people, teams, whether it's an individual founder or a couple of people that have been talking about this idea, depending on what the stage is, we help them to get that through workshops. We help them get that articulated, lots of questions and discussions to get it mapped out into both a scope of what it would take to build it, but also very detailed documents that explain the user journey and show some mock-ups in the early days. But that's just a first step, because then you really need to get that validated. You need to start getting it in the hand, getting that concept that's now articulated clearly enough. You need to start getting lots and lots of feedback from the people that you think you're actually solving the problem from. And I think that's the stage where people often don't spend enough time, is getting, they start building something before they've done enough conversations with the people that it's for to make sure that they're probably building, at least 80% the right thing. Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then I guess the importance is to be in touch with target market with that prototype and pivot as necessary.
Yeah. And I think the majority of people out there now building software products are already aware of this change in approach, but fortunately we're learning we're globally learning finally that build as little as you can in the beginning. Just keep it as simple and as inexpensive as possible, to get that prototype into the hands of actual users before you commit to building something complex or expensive.
So it's a bit of agile development. It's a bit of design thinking,
Mhm.
and and it's a bit of, I think you mentioned to me before, Seth Godin, like the notion of just creating something and shipping it. Just like, don't get carried away with like your thing being perfect. Just ship your product. I think
Yeah.
philosophy there.
Yeah, and I'm happy that I see that being much more norm these days. Is like people are getting used to this idea. Like it's okay to put something into the hands of users that isn't perfect because, well, what is? I mean, how many times have you ever used an app in your life that you thought was absolutely amazing and perfect and that you couldn't? Maybe a few, but those have been years in the making and many customer feedback loops happening to get to that point. So we're all kind of used to, as users, if you think about that, it's like, as a customer, as a user, as a consumer, I use things all the time that are not perfect, and that's just okay. So why not put something into the hands of other people that's not perfect and get feedback? That's the way it works.
Yeah, I think it's just a bit of a philosophical shift for a lot of people of not um, of not following that urge to have it be perfect,
Yeah, it is
and
hard.
yeah, being okay with that. And so, in terms of philosophy, something you said to me when we were talking before is about how we can be better ancestors, right? So, what does that mean to you?
I just read this book, Long Path by Ari Wallach. I think he's also from New York. I just found him on Big Think on YouTube, and haven't really heard too many people talking about this book yet, but it's a pretty easy read. And so I'm borrowing that phraseology and that language from him. But just I I guess over the last 15 or 20 years, I've just consistently seeing the benefit of zooming out and looking at things over, not such short-term thinking, but the more we zoom out and look at long-term thinking before we zoom back in to do something, the more benefit there is to it. And this book is about zooming out beyond even our own lifetimes and just really thinking about, how am I showing up in the world? What decisions am I making in the context of how can I be a better ancestor? And just thinking about what kind of world are we leaving, and what are we doing right now that will make this place better for people after us. And I just find that to be such a powerful way to think. And I would really recommend that book to anybody out there that's creating anything. It's just like, how can we design what we're building, the organizations, the cultures, the products, anything we're doing. It's just an amazing lens to look through, I think.
Yeah, it's striking to me, just that phrase it's quite a striking reframe to the things that we do. Um, and It's kind of a silly aside, but I just rewatched the Star Wars Rogue One. Um, and God, I mean, I guess I have to spoil the plot to say it's like kind of like all the characters in the movie die, right? But they contributed something in the process of doing so to the Star Wars trilogy and
Yeah,
all of that. And it's just like a fascinating thing and it's kind of in a notion, if we want to be better ancestors, we're going to die in the process, right? Like it's basically saying like, okay, there's a point at which we won't be here, and everything we're doing is towards something that's going to happen, um
after us.
towards the people that are going to be here when we're not.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very gets you thinking differently, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely does. And um and, and so I think growth is very important to you, like personal growth is important to
Mhm.
you. Why is it important to you to continually grow?
So I've been working on a book for a while now, and one of these days I'll be announcing that it's actually being published. But it's called "Scary Equals Happy," and this realization happened for me in my early, probably mid 30s, where I realized that I'd spent the decade of my 20s focusing on the dream of you know being successful and I'd been just working really hard to attain my dreams, but I wasn't thinking at all about who am I right now and who do I want to be and who am I becoming and what does that even mean? Started like paying a lot more attention to those things and realized that people want to grow. Like we don't feel happy if we evaluate ourselves and our lives and we feel like it's flat, if we feel stuck, if we feel like maybe even we're heading, in the wrong direction, it sucks. We all want to feel if I think it's core to our existence. We want a feeling of progress. And typically we're measuring that progress in external metrics. We're looking at our lives, like, okay, what's my bank account look like? What's my salary look like? What are my savings looking like? What do I have? How's my house? Da, 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 da. And really, I think it's much more in our control. We can move the locus of control internal and say, I am in control of who I am becoming. And I have the power, no matter what external situations are happening in my life, I can be focused on making me better. If I become more valuable in this world, probably the external stuff will also follow. I'll be more valuable. Therefore, I will make more money or whatever. And so I started realizing the only way to grow consistently is to do things we're uncomfortable with, and all these little scary things in our lives that we're naturally avoiding. If we headed toward them, because they're not a gun, they're not a lion, they're not going to kill us. If we head toward these things that we're scared of that don't actually have risk, on the other side of them is where all the magic and growth is. And I started just testing that. Like, okay, if I can find anything anywhere in my life that makes me uncomfortable, if I just headed directly toward it, what would happen? And I started learning, like, wow, I'm just, public speaking, conversations with other people that I notice I'm avoiding, just have them anyway, no matter how fucking scary it is, and hope I can say that on your podcast. But yeah. So anyway, yeah. So just it has become, there was a period of time, even in the last 8 or 9 years, where even though I had 2 kids and a family and I was on the other side of the planet and I was not necessarily set up financially, I decided to set aside money and just say, I want to grow myself as fast as possible. Read as much as I can, spend time around people, whether that's through knowing them personally or through podcasts and books and YouTube videos. And yeah, I love helping people also who are on that kind of very focused on growing themselves. I really love conversations and coaching and helping other people grow. It's really, I think it's one of the most rewarding feelings in the human experience, when we feel like we're actually learning and growing and growing capacity and growing perspective. And yeah, passionate about that.
Totally agree. And so you work with people on creating high performing teams, and like it's the kind of like the big not so secret about leadership is it's about growing the leader, right? Like it's like typically an organization becomes the alter ego of the founder, of the person leading the organization, and whatever kind of hangups and like unresolved issues they have become the issues of the organization, right? And so kind of some of us know that, but a lot of people that are running organizations don't necessarily know that. So people come to you wanting to have you grow their team. And so you must, I'm putting words in your mouth, but you must like know that the important thing is for them to embrace growth as well in order to overcome whatever challenges they're having. And I'm wondering, like, how do you help people that have no context for personal growth to realize, like, hey, this is where the magic is in growing yourself so that you can grow your organization?
I think you're touching on one of the most challenging problems I've ever run into in life, is that I'm not sure you can get someone else to want to grow. I don't, like, if you're in a partnership relationship and you are on this path of making yourself better, growing, trying to understand your own hangups, and your partner's not, can you get them to want to? You can lead by example, and maybe they realize it at some point. I'm not sure I haven't figured that one out. So I typically
let's put partnerships aside for a moment. So people that
So
have come to you,
just clients, just
clients
looking
that
at
have come to you, yes, and say
sure.
like, "Hey, like, I need help growing my team." And you realize that, like, they're kind of in a pattern of just trying to beat all their team members out, like trying to be number one all the time, and so they're not allowing their team, like they're so used to winning that they're like
Yeah.
trying to win against their own team members, and you just realize, like, hey, like this person like did some personal growth work that would do a tremendous service to the things that they want to accomplish here. So do you encounter that?
So less these days, to be really honest with you. The pattern that I've seen is that people who are impact oriented are usually also really working on themselves. I've noticed a lot of really good leaders in that space. Seems to kind of correlate that the more you're focused on helping other people on this planet, the more interested you are. Like humility's there. I don't know. It just seems like we run in. I feel very grateful that we get to work with a lot of kind of values aligned people. And if I do run across someone where we don't have, for example, one of our core, one of the reasons I'm in business with the people that I'm in business with is that we have a shared belief that business should be about humans first. And even if money was your top goal, you still would be better off, just follow Simon Sinek. Like, we really believe in putting people first as a philosophy. And it's not just a tactic. It's like really what we care about. So if we meet someone who isn't interested in those same things, I don't think we would actually end up working with them. But if I was working with someone and I noticed those kind of things, and there was a potential for me to offer feedback, like I certainly would do that. But it might reach a point where we just couldn't keep working together because that's too much misalignment. The way you're describing it sounds misaligned enough that I would probably fire that client, to be frank.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess, they say, like, when you really express yourself, right? When you really express who you are and like your values, so
if you
that
stand for something. Yeah.
When you stand for something and you express, like, kind of what you're all about, you will attract the people that are attracted to that, and the people that aren't into that will stay far away. So it sounds like you have been kind of like really clear and out there with what you're about enough that the people that say, "Hey, I want to work with you," they're aligned.
That's a scary thing to do at first, because in my first businesses is like, you always just want any customer that you're trying to grow your business. And it feels very scary to turn down business or to stand for something that might repel people. That just feels scary. But I've heard people that I trust advocate that over and over again. And the more I, just kind of gradually headed in that direction, and the more I've had the courage to do it, the more I believe in it and the more it works. And it's just, life is so much better when you're working with people that see things similarly. And yeah, it does. It's true.
Well, I suppose that if you're humans first oriented, then you will naturally turn down business that isn't aligned with you, even if it's scary to do so.
Yeah, I think it's yeah. I agree, and I concur, and it is true.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to tell us a bit about what you do in the world. And if people want to learn more about you or get in touch with you, how do they go about doing so?
I'd love to connect with people. If you think anything here that I've talked about is interesting, let's have a conversation on LinkedIn. For no particular reason would be fine with me, depending on what you have in mind. LinkedIn is a great way to reach out. And on my LinkedIn, you'll also find, if you are building a software product, we have a 5-minute evaluation that you can kind of find out where the bottlenecks might be in product development. That's a quick scorecard you can do there, which is a good way to get started talking to us if that's something interesting to you. But yeah, love to connect.
Awesome. Well, Eli, thanks again. I really appreciate you taking the time and being on this podcast.
Rich, it's been a really fun conversation. And yeah, thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.